At some point in your life, you have stood next to someone who was no longer there. The body was present, but the person was gone, and something in you could not accept it, could not walk away, could not pretend that what was lying there was just nothing. That feeling, that refusal, that unbearable need to do something, anything, for someone who can no longer feel it, that is not modern, that is not civilized, that is not something religion taught you. That feeling is at least 100,000 years old, and the moment it first appeared in a human heart was the moment something entered the world that had never existed before. Scientists can tell us when humans first used tools, when they first made fire, when they first created art, all of it written in stone, in ash, in bone. But there is one question that reaches deeper than any of those. When did humans first understand that death was real? When did a human being first look at someone they loved, lying completely still, and feel something beyond simple loss? When did grief become more than just instinct? The answer is buried in the ground, literally. And what archaeologists have found there is one of the most moving and most mysterious stories in all of human history. Most animals do not bury their dead. They do not mourn in any way we would recognize as grief. When an animal in a herd dies, the others move on, sometimes within minutes. Not out of cruelty, out of pure biological reality. The dead are gone. The living must continue. But chimpanzees are different. And what they do gives us our first window into what our ancestors may have felt. When a chimpanzee infant dies, the mother carries the body, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. She grooms it. She holds it close while sleeping. She does not accept that it is gone. Researchers who study this behavior describe it not as instinct, but as something that looks disturbingly close to denial, to grief, to the refusal to let go. Our ancestors shared a common ancestor with chimpanzees 6 million years ago, which means that grief, in some form, may be older than our species itself. But what our ancestors did with that grief, what they built from it, what they created because of it, that is something no other animal ever managed. In 1969, archaeologists excavating a cave in northern Israel found something extraordinary. Inside Kafsa cave, they discovered a burial. Not recent, not medieval, not even ancient Egyptian. 100,000 years old. A young woman, laid carefully on her side. Her body positioned not randomly, but deliberately. With intention, with care. But what stopped the researchers completely was what surrounded her: red ochre, a mineral pigment, ground to powder and dusted across her body, painted onto her bones in a deep, vivid red. The color of blood, the color of life, placed deliberately on someone no longer living. Nearby, a child, laid beside her, arms positioned as if reaching toward her, as if placed there by someone who could not bear the thought of them being separated, even in death. This was not practical. Burying a body serves no survival purpose. It costs time and energy a hunter-gatherer group could not easily spare. And painting the body with pigments serves no purpose at all to someone who was already gone. These actions were entirely for the living, for the people left behind, for the grief that had nowhere else to go. Scientists call the red ochre evidence of symbolic thinking, evidence of ritual, evidence of belief in something beyond death. But what it really is evidence of love that refused to end just because the person it was directed at no longer breathed. That is 100,000 years old, and it looks exactly like something you would do. For most of the last century, scientists assumed Neanderthals were not capable of complex feeling. They were viewed as primitive, brutish, a dead end in the story of evolution, smart enough to survive, not smart enough to feel deeply. That assumption collapsed completely in a cave in Iraq. Shanidar Cave, 1960. Archaeologist Ralph Seletsky is excavating carefully when he finds a skeleton. A Neanderthal man, 60,000 years old. And this man's bones tell a story before a single word is spoken about him. His right arm was amputated above the elbow at some point during his life. The bone shows clear signs of healing. He survived the amputation. His eye socket shows damage consistent with blindness in one eye. Severe arthritis throughout his spine. He could not hunt, could not fight, could not contribute to the group in any practical, physical way. And yet he lived to approximately 40 years old, which in Neanderthal terms was considerable age. Someone fed him, someone protected him, someone kept him alive for years with no practical reason to do so. Except one, he was one of them, and they were not willing to leave him behind. But it was what Seletsky found around another Shanidar skeleton that made the world stop. Pollen. Specific pollen, from flowers, 8 different species, all of them clustered in a pattern consistent with being placed deliberately around and on top of the body. Grape hyacinth, bachelor's button, groundsel, all of them blooming species, placed on a grave 60,000 years ago, by hands that are gone, for a person who was gone, as an act of, what? What do you call it when you bring flowers to a grave? We call it mourning. We call it love outlasting death. And Neanderthals were doing it long before our species arrived in Europe. Burial alone is remarkable. But some ancient burials go further, much further. And what they reveal is not just grief, it is belief. Specific, structured, deliberate belief in something on the other side of death. In Sungur, Russia, archaeologists found two children buried together approximately 34,000 years ago, head to head, facing each other. What surrounded them took researchers years to fully document. More than 10,000 mammoth ivory beads, sewn painstakingly into their clothing. Researchers calculated that producing those beads alone would have taken an estimated 10,000 hours of labor. 10,000 hours. For two children who were already gone. Ivory fox teeth arranged around their bodies. Carved pendants. Decorated spears. Objects of extraordinary value in a world where every resource was difficult to produce, given to people who could no longer use them. Why? The only explanation that makes sense is that the people who buried these children believed they were going somewhere. That the journey continued. That the objects buried with them would be needed. Would be used. Would matter, on the other side. Whatever the other side meant to someone 34,000 years ago, they believed in it completely. Completely enough to spend 10,000 hours preparing for it. Here is the thought that changes everything, when you sit with it long enough. To bury someone with care, to paint their body, to place flowers on their grave, to send them into death surrounded by beautiful things, you first have to believe that the body is not the person. That is a profound idea. An idea so natural to us now that we forget someone had to think it for the very first time. At some point, a human being looked at a body and understood that whoever they were looking for was no longer in it. That the thing they loved, the voice, the laugh, the particular way that person moved, was gone somewhere the eyes could not follow. And that realization, that specific, terrible realization, is the beginning of every religion that has ever existed. Every prayer, every ritual, every concept of heaven or afterlife or reincarnation or paradise or any of the 1,000 words different cultures have used across all of human history to describe the same impossible hope, that this is not the end. That somewhere, the person is still there. And that what we do with the body matters to wherever they went. Ancient humans did not develop burial practices because someone told them to. They developed them because grief is unbearable without meaning. And meaning requires belief. And belief, once it existed, never stopped growing. But death did something else for ancient humans. Something practical. Something that changed the course of our species in ways we rarely consider. Death made us think about the future. Specifically, urgently, personally. When you understand that the people around you can die, that this is not abstract but inevitable and coming, your relationship with time changes completely. You start thinking ahead in a way that no animal without death awareness ever has to. What will happen to my children when I am gone? What knowledge do I need to pass on before I cannot? What should I build that will last after me? Death awareness is the engine of legacy, the engine of teaching. The engine of every human impulse to create something permanent in a temporary life. The cave paintings at Lascaux, the mammoth ivory carvings, the carefully crafted tools passed from parent to child, all of them are, in some sense, a response to death, a refusal to disappear completely, a hand reaching forward through time, saying, I was here, I existed, remember me. The first humans who buried their dead with care were the first humans to truly understand that they themselves would one day need burying. And that understanding changed everything about how they chose to live. 100,000 years ago, someone knelt beside a body and could not stand up and walk away. So they stayed. And they painted the body red, the color of blood, the color of life, as if to say, you are not finished. 60,000 years ago, someone picked flowers, walked to a grave, and placed them gently on someone who could not smell them, as if to say, I still want to give you beautiful things. 34,000 years ago, someone spent 10,000 hours carving beads for two children who would never wear them, as if to say, wherever you are going, you deserve to arrive as someone who is loved. Nothing has changed. We still bring flowers. We still stay longer than we need to. We still find ourselves talking to people who cannot hear us. We still refuse to accept that love simply stops because someone stops breathing. That refusal is 100,000 years old. It is the most human thing about us. More than fire. More than language. More than art or tools or civilization. The moment a human being first wept over a body, and could not explain why, but could not stop, something entered the world that had never existed before. Grief, the proof that we loved, the evidence that we knew what it meant to lose, the beginning of every belief that has ever tried to make the unbearable, bearable. We have been trying for 100,000 years, we are still trying, and somehow, that makes it a little less impossible.